another video on the Glace Cherries because I wasn't just 100% happy with them. So I'm going to change it this time. I have made some cherry juice, which was pretty straightforward. All you do is you just take cherries. Well, these were frozen cherries, so they were frozen cherries. So I bought 2 packets of these. I've kept one whole, which we're going to glace, and then I took the other packet and I defrosted them, pureed them, refroze them, and then defrosted them, and then strained. The liquid then comes out a lot easier, so then you get like a pure cherry juice. I was just struggling to find a unsweetened cherry juice, or a cherry juice that just was made with sugar rather than sweeteners, because if you're going to concentrate sweeteners, they're just not very nice. They're not very nice in their normal state, in my opinion. So I was struggling to find some cherry juice, so I had to make my own, which is pretty straightforward. So cherry juice, and so it's 300 milliliters of cherry juice, and then 300 grams worth of sugar. I've melted them together, and then out of the way, cherries in, bring up to the boil, simmer for 5 minutes, and repeat the process every day. Let them cool, well, bring up to the boil, let them cool down, and then the next day repeat the process. And what happens over time is the cherries suck in the sugar and turn into glacé cherries, yeah, or like maraschino cherries. So the ones that I made were nice, but they didn't really taste of cherries anymore. They just tasted of sugar, which is fine if you like sugar, and they were very nice. But I just wanted something that was a little bit more cherry. So by using the juice instead of water, hopefully we're going to bypass that, and it should be nicer. So anyway, and I also think maybe I've cooked them for a little bit too long last time. So maybe do them for 4 days, maybe 5 days. See how we go. I've got some cherry juice left. So what we'll do is, every day you tend to lose juice and sugar through evaporation and through the cherries soaking up the sugar. So we need to keep topping it up. So after 2 days, you might need to add another 100 milliliters of juice and 100 grams worth of sugar, and then so you don't end up with boiling it down to nothing. And they're sour cherries, are these ones, which I always kind of think sour fruits are a little bit more interesting than normal fruits. They tend to have got like a more interesting flavour. You lose kind of sweet fruits. They just tend to be sweet with a little bit of flavour. But when you sweeten up a sour fruit, it tastes a lot more interesting. So I think sour cherries are going to be nicer to make this with. But it's just a bit of fun. It just takes a little while. So you don't kind of need to see me boiling it up every day, because it's pretty straightforward. Bring it up to the boil every day, simmer for 5 minutes, put a lid on it, let it go cold. Next day repeat the process, 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 until they turn to glacé cherries. So I'll be doing this for the next 5 days. I'll be doing other things within the next 5 days. I won't just be doing this, I'll have other things to do, but there we go. So just don't want to boil them too much, because we don't want to boil them to death. And we'll also see how the frozen cherries kind of work as opposed to fresh cherries, because the last ones were fresh cherries. So we'll just have to see if it still works with frozen cherries, which is kind of better, because frozen cherries are cheaper. They are already pitted, so you don't kind of need to faff around with pitting them, and you're also going to get them cheap. You don't have to wait until the summertime until they are, what is it, the summer? Yeah, late. Yeah, they're a summer fruit. So you don't have to wait until cherries are available to buy and relatively cheap. You can just buy the frozen ones if this works out. But anyway, that's what we're doing. Back in a bit. Right, so 7 days later, and cherries are done, and they're extremely nice. So they have, because I used cherry juice instead of water this time, they have kept their cherry flavour, and they're sour cherries, so they're kind of really quite nice as well. They've retained that little bit of sourness as well. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to put some in a jar and just kind of keep them in the cupboard and see if I can use them like maraschino cherries. So a little bit like maraschino cherries, which are nice in an old-fashioned cocktail. We'll keep some in a jar and see if they work in a old-fashioned cocktail. Next time I have an old-fashioned. It might be an excuse to have an old-fashioned this weekend. So we'll put some in a jar. They haven't kind of kept the shape as well as jarred maraschino cherries, but the people who make maraschino cherries are obviously professionals, so they know what they're doing, whereas I'm just faffing around. But it's made a lovely shiny syrup. And then so just how many I kind of want. Put another spoonful in there. So that I need to put more syrup in, just so they don't not cramp together. So that's that. So we'll put a lid on that and we'll have a look at that at some time in the future. And then these are the cherries that I did before, and they've started to crystallize, which is, well, it's made them like sweeties really, so that's kind of quite interesting, and they are delicious. So they should do the same. Well, maybe not actually. Maybe the acidity in the cherries will stop that from happening. But anyway, I'm going to strain them. It's a bit precarious, isn't it? And then we'll do so every couple of days we had evaporation of liquid. So we lost some of the liquid. So I topped up with the same amount of cherry juice and sugar. So if I thought it needed a bit more liquid in it, I put in 50 grams worth of cherry juice and then 50 grams worth of sugar, just to kind of keep that kind of balance, because the cherries were soaking up the sugar as well. So you kind of think, well, evaporation, and it just kind of makes things easier rather than kind of like any other kind of level. So those can go into a container, and we'll see if anything interesting crystallization wise happens with those. It might not do, because they're kind of quite sour, and sour things tend to not let sugar crystallize, which is what happened with the other ones. And then I've got some cherry juice left over, so we'll do a cherry cordial for a bit of fun. So, and I've also got some, well, I'm running out of cordial anyway, so I've got some, I was in the freezer and I found some other random juice. I think it's pomegranate, or it might be blueberry. Let's give it a taste. No, it's pomegranate. So we'll do a, won't waste that. It'd be nice to have some cordial. Cherry and pomegranate cordial, which will be interesting. So that's that. And we just need to boil that and reduce it to get rid of some of the liquid, concentrate it in flavour, and then we'll add some sugar and some lemon. Well, we'll see if we need some lemon, because with the what we call it are kind of quite tart, aren't they? The cherries kind of quite tart, so we might not actually need to add some lemon to that. Let's just get rid of that while we start those out of the way. And then instead of just adding sugar, we'll actually see if we can use that cherry syrup to sweeten the cherry cordial. So we're not wasting kind of anything. So that'd be like there's always something kind of interesting. We don't like wasting all that kind of stuff, but we'll see what they look like in a couple of days. Well, they don't look the best. No, so you've kind of cut the shape, but not entirely. And I tend to think that when you're making candied cherries and glace cherries, that I think potentially what they will do is they will use unripened ripe fruit, but not too ripe. That they are keep a little bit of the shape a little bit better. To reduce that, we'll concentrate that flavour, because when you're making a cordial, we're going to be adding water to that, so you kind of want to evaporate off water if you're going to be adding more water, because that's not just kind of what is it? Well, see what it tastes like now. See, it's nice, but you just kind of drink that with maybe a little bit more water. So maybe you would add another 25% worth of water to that, and then that would make a nice cordial. So to make a cordial, we can't just turn that into cordial. We need to add some sugar, and we need to evaporate off that liquid, because we're going to be putting liquid back into it, which kind of doesn't really kind of make sense, does it? If you think about it. But cordials are much more diverse than just juices. So with a cordial, we could add it to like a cheap sparkling wine and make like a bit of a fruity cocktail summertime. But anyway, so we'll reduce that, concentrate the flavours, we'll add some of that, and then we'll add some of the sugar as well, and we'll kind of see if we can make like a nice cordial. We have reduced the juice, so I think I might just be able to add that to that, and it will be a sweet enough. Now we're just going to wing it. I'm just going to trust my judgment to kind of make this cordial. So we'll pour syrup from the cherries into there. Pour that back into there, and then we'll kind of get any of that cherry out of there. That's about as much as we're going to get out of that. And we'll give it a taste and see if it needs a bit more sugar. Yeah, it needs some sugar. It won't need any lemon. So I did have some sugar somewhere. We're going to put in 50 grams. I suppose this is a bit of a lesson of winging it as you go. Some people like to follow recipes, other people just like to do things by taste. So melt the sugar, give it a bit of taste, see if it tastes sweet enough. Things when they are warm and hot and cold and even frozen taste differently. So need a bit more, just a wee bit more. So let's put in another 50 grams. We'll use another spoon if I've got a clean one. So we might just need to heat it so it melts the sugar. It's taken on more of a syrupy kind of consistency. Yeah, we just need to add a bit more heat to that. Is it sour cherries that are doing it? No, because there's always a danger that we add too much sugar and it becomes too thick. I need to put the timer on for that. I'm doing something else at the same time. So we'll give that a bit of heat, completely melt the sugar in the bottom of there, which will probably taste about right afterwards. There doesn't need to be any lemon because we've used sour cherries. So we'll just freeze, give it a bit of heat, and then it'll be ready. Right, so that is completely melted. Spoon. So nice and shiny, and all the sugar's gone from the bottom. Get that out of the way. So I've got a nice clean bottle, I don't know what we call it in it, and a funnel. I'll have to do that off camera. There we go. In the bottle, let it cool. It's a clean bottle, so it's a lovely colour. So we'll see what that looks like tomorrow when it's cooled, and then we'll have a look at cherries in a couple of days, see if they start to crystallise. Oh no, we'll just look at the cherries tomorrow. When that's cooled, we'll have a taste test of that, and we'll have a look at the cherries as well. But I think that's it. The cherries might crystallise, but I don't think that's kind of quite as interesting as doing a better version of the cherries. There might be an update on that sometime in the future, but there we go. Part of the candied cherries, Glace Cherries video. There we go, and there's some nice cordial for as a byproduct. Right, so everything's cool. Let's just have a quick go over. These haven't held their shape particularly well, so that might have been down to the freezing process, so you can't really tell the cherries anymore. Tastes good though. It might be because they're out of the syrup, so we'll give the ones that we put in syrup a look. So they're better. You see that? They're better. We've kept them in the syrup, and they've kind of held their shape better. So they look more like maraschino cherries. So if you want to make your own maraschino cherries for a fraction of the price, I think that's not bad. Let's get the other maraschino cherries while we're here. So these are, you know, I mean, these are like professional ones that you probably buy. So, I mean, they look sensational, those. I mean, if you want a proper looking cherry in your cocktail, they're the ones to go for. How does it taste? I forget how they taste. Well, I won't taste the cherry, I'll just taste the juice, and I'll remember. See, they're delicious. They are delicious. You know, they make your cocktail ever so nice, but they're expensive. Whereas these, you can make loads for not that much money. They're as nice, but they're nice in a different way, if that makes sense. So you can't really compare them both. So the ones that I've made compared to the ones that you can buy, they're as nice as each other. It's just that they're different. They're different. They're nice in a different way. I wouldn't say. I'd still, out of choice. I'm a bit of a food snob. I'd always want those. But you know, if times are hard, you can make your own. There we go. So I'll end up putting those in some kind of cake. Those we'll try in an old-fashioned cocktail sometime. So we'll give the cordial a taste. So it's not thick, because I don't like my cordials too sweet or too thick. If I can get the top off. So obviously I had some pomegranate juice to put in this, just as a way of using up some pomegranate juice, but it's nice and shiny. I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. Right, so it's lovely and shiny. It's a lovely colour. It's a lovely colour. So just for that bit of cherry juice that we didn't use up, it's just a way of using it. So that in there, and then a bit of that. I would have liked that. I forgot to buy some fizzy water. Does it need a stir? No, it doesn't need a stir. It's alright, we can save the spoon. So I was going to buy some fizzy water, but I've forgotten. But by cutting down the sweetness, you could add it to like really nice tonics and things like that. So it kind of, I just don't like too sweet of things. You know, when things are a bit claggy with sweetness. That's lovely. There we go. A success. A roundabout success. I'm never 100% happy, but I'm never 100% happy with anything that I do, because I can always think I can improve. But there we go. Yeah, so mock maraschino cherries and glacé cherries made with frozen sour cherries. A success.